Hello everyone, here we are once again. Round number 5 of Tata Steel Chess 2022, and one of the best games in the round was this game by Richard Rapport against the youngest participant in the field, Ramesh Babu Pragnan, and alright, let's go through the game. Rapport was white, Prag was black. Started with d4, right? Queen spawn. Prag went for knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4. Now bishop b4 is what we call the Nimzo Indian defense. Okay, we're into the Nimzo. Queen c2. Okay, the main point of queen c2 is that if the opponent takes on c3, we can take it with a queen instead of taking the pawn, so no double pawn. Castles, a3, forcing the exchange on c3. Takes with the bishop, takes with the queen. All right, d5, a normal centralizing of the pawn on d5. Okay, bishop g5 with that pin on the queen. c5. Okay, king is still in the middle of the board. Break it. Okay, a good pawn break by Prague. Rapport was like, okay, let me take it. D takes c5, d4, space for black. White's problem is still the bishop and knight and rook. It's still underdeveloped, yeah. And black has already castled. Queen g3. Rapport is one of the most inventive players out there. We have Rapport, we have Jubava, yeah, we have even Mamijarov is also. They're original players, yeah. They play unorthodox chess, yep. So after Queen g3, knight to b7, the knight is hitting the pawn on c5. Rapport went for knight f3 in the game. Bragg went for e5. Now let's take a look at knight takes c5. If the knight takes on c5, white has rook to d1. And it's not easy to protect that pawn on d4 because you don't have e5 anymore. Yep. And if you want to protect the pawn with the knight on b3, okay, the queen steps on e5. Yep. Queen steps on e5. There's no queen a5 check, which gives gives white a bit of an edge. Yep. Okay. So Prague went for e5. And here white played rook d1. Okay, is this a free pawn? Okay, let me ask a question. If let's say knight takes an e5, this time it's instead of capturing a knight on e5, Pregnant has knight takes c5. Yep. Okay, let's say let's put the rook on d1. The problem is the knight e4. Yep. And that gives black a winning position. Yep. Because the next move would be queen a5 check. It's either hitting the knight and also the king kong here on e1. Okay, so after e5, rook to d1. Rook to e8, centralizing the rook. b4, protecting c5. a5, okay, nice moment also for black. He will try to make sure that the rook becomes active on the a file, yes. Knight e2, takes on b4, takes on b4. Now the rook controls the a file. Centralized rook. So you may think that black is actually better in this position. Yeah, and king is still in the middle of the board, e1, yeah, with this bishop on f1. But Rapport actually has a deep understanding of this position. He is actually relying on these 3 pawns. Yeah. Look at the 3 pawns. Look at the 3 pawns towards the end of the game. Okay, king f8. This is probably the wrong direction. Okay, the wrong direction. I don't know why Bragg had to play king f8. Why? He doesn't have to worry. For example, if he pushes e4, he doesn't have to worry about this king on g8 because you have knight h5. Yeah? If opponent, let's say, plays queen to g4, you have knight d f6. Knight protects. Knight protects. So I don't know why he had to play king f8. Not too sure about that, yeah? Maybe. I have no actual no idea with King F8. Why Prague played, but a bit questionable because it was also wasting time. Yeah, and wasting tempo. Now here Queen to B3. Ah, okay. He wanted to play. He wanted to drive away the bishop with H6 because okay, with okay, understandable with that one, but why the need? Why the need to drive away that bishop? He was worried about the pin, but let's look at the tempo. Yeah, if let's say you push E4, for example, opponent plays E3, you go D3, and opponent plays F3, and you go Rook A2. Yes, I mean, look at that king on E1. Look at that bishop on F1. You don't have to worry about driving away the bishop on H6 because you can just move away your queen on to E7 and E6 maybe, yeah, and can move the knight. Okay, it's a step in the wrong direction with King F8. Queen to B3, H6, Bishop H4, E4, E3. This is also not so good, D3. Yeah, it fixes the pawns. Although the pawn looks dangerous on D3 because it's only two steps away and it's keeping the bishop on F1 because there's no bishop E2. But the problem is that this pawn is also having this tension, yeah, this tension on the E3 square. Don't release the tension. Keep it there. I would have suggested this move, knight e5, at least developing the knight, bring the bishop into the game with bishop f5, yes. Because white, for example, if let's say he plays h3 here, bishop into f5, because what if he develop his bishop, now you play d3, yes, so the bishop can't be developed. If he plays g4, for example, just bishop go back, yeah, anywhere you want. You can even go bishop d7 and go bishop a4 to hit the skewer on the rook on d1, yeah. So keep it there because if let's say okay, uh, let's say opponent takes on d4, there's knight f3, check. That's it. Because pawn takes, he takes f3, discovered attack on the king. That's it. That's about it. Take if you play bishop e2, rook takes e2, king f1, bishop h3. Yep. Okay. I also understand Prague at this moment because his main coach, Grandmaster Ramesh, was infected with COVID. I think it was it yesterday or this morning? Yeah. So our prayers to Grandmaster Ramesh, Prague's coach. So I think Prague is not also in the right frame of mind. Yeah, he's maybe worried about his coach, and that probably affected him. Okay, so after h6, bishop h4, e4, e3, d3. From here on, white played flawless chess. Yeah, g5, bishop into g3, knight e5, queen b2. Nice. Queen e7. Okay, a challenge on the open file first. Takes. After bishop f5, exchange. Amazing exchange. Okay, the rook has to step back and go to a8, so that will cost you at least two tempi. Yeah. So g4, bishop into g6, bishop g2, developing the bishop. Prague had to move back with rook e8, knight b1. Okay, nice repositioning of the knight. Knight e7. Okay, the main point is that if rook a8 and then just knight c3, yes. Knight into c3, the bishop is protecting that rook on h1, so there's no skewer. Protecting also a2 and protecting a4, no rook a4 to attack the pawn on b4. So Prague went for knight e7, king into d2, rook a8, king c3, nice move. Rook a2, what a move by Rapport, huh? Sacrificing the pawn on f2, but then after rook takes f2, the exchange. Once the rook is exchanged, for example, you capture on d2, knight takes d2. This is going to be a real problem now. This majority 3 versus 1. The pawn is 3 steps away from promoting on c8 with king d4, b5, yeah, c6. Hard to stop. So Prague had to play rook f6 to stop any ideas of b5 and c6, but king d4, goes into play, rook note cannot go to d6, knight cannot go to e5, centralized king attacking e4 with the bishop, knight is coming. This is already winning, yeah, a winning endgame for white. Rook to e6, knight c3, all right, rook, knight, okay, rook, knight, bishop, protecting e4, but I have the pawn now. Rolling pawns, connected pawns, b5, king into g7, rook a2, rook is now active. This pawn 2 steps away, but the knight is protecting that promotion square on d1. After h5, just takes. Prague went for bishop f5. Okay, rook into b2. King h6, rook into f2. Bishop h7, exchange the knight. Because if, let's say, you take this knight, it would be 3 pawns. Oh no, deadly pawn phalanx, the phalanx of the pawns. So knight takes h5, centralized knight, rook takes f7. Again, if you push that pawn, then I just steps back on c3, taking away the d1 square. Knight g3, a very tricky move. You have to be careful, sense of danger. Knight e2, removing the defender on c3 so he can promote. And now knight e1. All right, avoiding that threat on e2. Knight e2, just king d5. Okay. Active king, passive king. Yep. Rook e8 again. Sense of danger. The king and the rook is on one line. The bishop can attack it with the pin. King to d6. Woohoo. Bishop into g6. Rook d7. Knight goes to f4. King c7. Even here, Rapport just gave out that bishop on g2. Like, okay, take it. It's yours. I have my pawns. Yeah, I want to take your passed pawn first. And I have this 3 connected pawns. Yes. After knight e3, c6. How to stop these pawns? Bishop f5, c7. Pass pawn, mass b pushed. Rook e5, knight b2. Knight is blocking a rook. I want an open line for the rook. Knight c5, this king c6. Okay. Knight goes to b3, rook to d8. Threatening c8 now, or maybe just b7, b6, b7. Rook c5 check, king d6. After g4, just takes, and b6. And here, Prague throw in the towel. He had enough. Now you cannot. It's hard to stop the pawns with b7 because you cannot also go knight a5 because this is an overworked piece. It's protecting the rook on c5. The king will just take if you move knight a5. Yeah. It was a strong game by Richard Rapport. He had this deeper understanding of that position, especially with that the b4, c4, and c5 pawns towards the end of the game. Okay, Prague should have at least try to complicate matters in the middle game. Because once that pawns, that b4, c4, c5 goes into the end game, it's hard for black to stop that one. Prague needed to do something in the middle game, right? Muddy the waters in the middle game. Maybe d3 was the last mistake by Prague, yeah, fixing that pawn. If he kept that pawn on d4 and played knight e5, it would have been a different result. But then again, we feel sorry for Prague's coach. He's infected with COVID-19. So our prayers up to Grandmaster Ramesh. Speedy recovery for him. Yep. And I hope again you you like our presentation, this is the second best game of the day. There were two decisive games. One was Mamijarov over Van Forest, and this time Richard Rapport over the youngest participant, Ramesh Babu Pragnananda. Okay, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting Charts Max Chess on Facebook and on YouTube. This is Coach Oliver. I'm signing off. Bye bye, everyone.